Today's crossover Thursday keys to victory is brought to you by our friends over there at PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDON to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Speaking of keys to victory, Hugh, let's break down this matchup into what is it that these teams have to do, right? We always get into the cliches like, okay, you got to run the ball effectively. You got to have a better turnover differential. We could talk about the what's, but let's talk about the hows here. For the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-8, they're still finding ways to compete, even though things aren't going their way. In the end result, you mentioned injuries play a factor into it. For a Raiders team and for a Broncos team, anytime these AFC West teams match up, I even think it's a great example. Look at the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens earlier this year, they lost to the 1-6 Cleveland Browns. Records don't matter. You threw that out there earlier. For the Las Vegas Raiders to come out with a victory on Sunday and catch the Broncos as they're trying to get back into the postseason with a quarterback they believe is the guy, what is it and how can the Raiders win this game?
Well, first, I'm going to start with the defense because the defense was supposed to be the ones that did the heavy lifting when the season started. And for one reason or the other, a lot of it has to do with injuries. The defense just hasn't been there. But I do think that they need to create a couple turnovers. They just have not created very many turnovers this season. Their turnover differential is like -15. I mean, it's just about the worst in the league. It's not very good. So they've got to find a way to get their hands on the ball, maybe give their offense a short field and really set them up for success and have an opportunity to be successful, which means that they're going to have to get pressure on the quarterback. So you're going to need to see Max Crosby be the boogeyman, as you mentioned in reference before. He's been that guy. He's got to be that guy, right? And then there's got to have other help from guys like Tyree Wilson, John Jenkins, Adam Butler, those guys along the defensive line. They're going to have to get all kind of help there. Again, we'll see who's going to be out there for the secondary. But, when you don't have all your guys in the secondary, all your top guys, your starters, that means that the defensive line has even more strain on them, right? They've got to go in there and really make things a little bit easier, get to the quarterback a little bit quicker, make them get that ball out of their hands and cause a mistake to be made, similar to what the Raiders did against Denver in week 5 when Minshew made a mistake. Patrick Surtain made him pay for it. Somebody's got to make Bo Nix pay for a mistake. If he creates a mistake or, there's a mistake forced, they've got to be able to capitalize that on and take advantage of it. So, I mean, the first and foremost, I just think that the defense is going to have to find a way to give their offense some short fields, create a couple turnovers, get some pressure on the quarterback. They've got to wreak havoc. And I think that you said it best. Max Crosby has to be the boogeyman. And on the flip side of things, Cody, Gardner Minshew just can't turn the ball over. Gardner Minshew has turned the ball over quite a bit, right? And there's a lot of Raider fans that are questioning why he's still the starting quarterback. Why didn't they go to Desmond Ridder, who he's nothing to write home about either? I mean, he was on the Cardinals practice squad when the Raiders got him. Aiden O'Connell's on IR, so there's not a lot of options, man. There's not a lot of flavors at the ice cream shop, right? I mean, it's basically vanilla or chocolate or other, right? And so it's not a whole plethora of different flavors to choose from. Minshew's got to take care of the ball. He really does. Brock Bowers is obviously the best playmaker for the Raiders. You got to get him involved early and keep him involved like they were last week when he had 13 catches. Scott Turner is the new OC. He's their interim OC. He's got familiarity, and the offense looked a lot better against Miami, but they weren't able to capitalize in the red zone. So if they get down to the red zone, don't throw a pick six. Right, you need to get into the end zone, score touchdowns, but you have to capitalize when you're in the red zone as well. So I think it really has come down to ball security. The Raiders defense has to take away the ball, and the Raiders offense has to secure the ball and make sure they hold on to it. I think those are going to be probably the two biggest things that the Raiders have to do to give themselves a chance to win this game on Sunday. When you're looking at the Broncos, though, what do they have to do or continue to do what they've been doing to get the victories that they've been stacking up?
Yeah, I always believe this, Q. In the world of football, when you play an opponent once and, you find a way to win or however it may be, I always feel like regardless, it's hard to beat that same team twice, right? You can't, you can do some of the same things that you had success with, but what is it that you're going to change? Because the Raiders, at least defensively, when they're going against the Broncos offense, they may say like, all right, hey, the first time we played these guys, this didn't work out well. Here's what we could have done better. Here's going to be our game plan, our emphasis here. And you always try to ask yourself, okay, hey, if we play these guys again, what would we do differently? Well, I think in that situation, we'll start with the Broncos defense against that Raiders offense and Gardner Minshew. And really, I remember that first drive that ended up Brock Bowers having a big time touchdown catch and run against PJ Locke. I remember there was a 3rd and 9 play where Gardner Minshew, he used his legs to pick up a first down, right? You extend drives, you sustain it. And you mentioned it too with, the new offense approach that they had there with Scott Turner. The Broncos didn't go against Scott Turner in that first game. So it's like, how are they going to game plan from, okay, hey, here's what we had success with in that week 5 matchup, but here's what they're doing now. Here's the different wrinkles that they're adding into the mix here. That I think is going to be a little challenge. I'm excited to see how that's going to kind of play out here. I think one of the bigger keys is getting off the field on third down. Denver, I mean, granted, it was against Kansas City. Kansas City is the best third down offense in all of football. And Denver, I mean, they did a really good job on a handful of plays, but then it's just like, hey, 3rd and 13, Mahomes scrambles, picks it up. He does that against everybody. So you have to have better third down numbers. The Broncos did that this past week against the Atlanta Falcons. I believe held them to 4 of 13 in that game. Kirk Cousins and that high-powered offense that has the capability of scoring. But now it's like, all right, hey, limit the explosives here from Brock Bowers. Look, if Amir Abdullah is going to start at running back, the emphasis first is going to be, hey, come out and stop the run, right? Because the run game opens things up in the passing game for any offense that you have there. So the emphasis is going to be, hey, come out and stop the run. It doesn't matter if it's Zamir White, Alexander Madison, if these guys somehow find a way to be healthy, or if it's Amir Abdullah, you got to find a way to stop the run first, and then find yourself in manageable second down situations, manageable 3rd and mediums, 3rd and longs, and then you can trust your technique and you kind of pin your ears back a little bit. I think that's going to be a big key here for the Broncos defense, those third down numbers specifically. Nick Bonito has been on a tear from the sack production there, and can he get a sack here this week and extend that and close the gap there on Trey Hendrickson, who has 11.5 in the league right now? That's going to be a key to watch. I would say another thing here, if we're going to shift gears here to the offensive side, especially for Bo Nix and the Broncos offense, certainly the Raiders defense, they're watching what they're doing. The passing game for Bo and the offense in Denver has certainly evolved a little bit. You got Cortland Sutton now as the primary guy. I think he really started to get going in that Raiders game specifically with a couple of big catches. But then it's like, all right, now you got Devon Bailey. Josh Reynolds could return into the lineup. They're using Marvin Mims in an entirely different role than they had early on in the season. I mean, he's getting some reps at receiver, but he's lining up in the backfield as a running back. He's a motion guy. And so they're using him as a little bit of a weaponized feature. And then you get rookie Troy Franklin, who's also making plays as well. But then in the run game, the Denver hasn't had Q. They haven't had a consistent 100-yard. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher from one specific player. They've amassed over 100 yards of rushing production spread out between guys like Bo Nix, Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and even rookie Audric Estime is now getting a little bit more involved. We asked Sean Payton this week about the running back rotation because there really is no clear one at this point.
Right.
And he says, that's the $6 million question. He says, this is hard for us to figure out. So they are going to use Javonte. They are going to use Jaleel, who's a change of pace speed back. And then they're starting to sprinkle in a little bit more Audric Estime, who's a big body, bulky guy. He reminds me of Doug Martin a little bit here, Q. He's big.
Okay.
He's got huge biceps.
Yeah.
He's almost as tall as me. He might even be an inch shorter than me at this point. But, man, he's hard to bring down there. So they're really going to try to get the run game going because that was something they really couldn't do against the Raiders in that first matchup. It was, hey, we got to pass and convert some drives here on third down through the air. The run game is the Raiders like, hey, we want you to throw the football. We're going to play zone coverage, keep everything in front, rally and tackle, but we want you to throw the football. Now it's about balance. That's where the Broncos are really trying to find it. And I feel like that's going to be a major emphasis for them this weekend against the Raiders. You have to get the run game going to a point where, hey, it's keeping you on the field a little bit longer and finding a way to wear down Max Crosby. Like, keep Max Crosby on the field for quite some time. Look, he's going to play with a high motor, but keep him on the field. Especially if your offense can find a way to end with points and score in the red zone, which they've done a really good job at doing. That right there, I think, can be a difference maker for them. I think that's if the Broncos are going to find a way to win on the road and snap that losing streak against the Raiders. They haven't won on the road against the Raiders since they were in Oakland. So it's been a while. Yeah. It's been a minute. That could change this week, but I know the Broncos, they're not overlooking the Raiders. This could be a trap game on paper, and I know the players are wanting to avoid that, but Denver has to achieve those things if they're going to win here on Sunday.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, the Raiders have struggled to stop the run consistently this year. So, I mean, if the Broncos are going to lean on the run game and try to be balanced, that's a good recipe. And, you mentioned getting off the field on third down, and that's such a huge key for the Raiders as well. Last week against Miami, man, they never forced a punt. Not one punt. Oof. Right, exactly. Miami was 8 for 12 on third down and 2 for 2 on fourth down. Never one time did they punt the ball. So that tells you right there, that was one of my big hangups. Like, wait, you got to find a way to get off the field. Even on 3rd and 20, they had like a holding penalty, or 3rd and 9, then they had a illegal contact penalty. Even when they did stop them, they didn't because of a penalty. So they've got to find a way to do that. That's going to be a huge key, obviously, for both teams, getting off the field on third down. And the Raiders haven't ran the ball very well at all this season. They had one game where they went to 152 yards. That was week 4 against Cleveland. And that was really a couple of their running backs or their wide receivers, I should say, got loose in the running game, not really their running backs. So that's been a big bugaboo for Antonio Pierce and the Raiders. They just haven't had a consistent run game. So the run game is going to be important on both sides of the ball for both teams, and getting off the field on third down is clearly going to be very important for both teams as well.